The Billionaires Marriage Pact, Clean Billionaire Fake Marriage Romance Series, Book 1. Written by Melody Archer. Narrated by Lorna Faith. Chapter 1. He needed a wife in less than 30 days. Adam Daniel Stevenson stared out at the Seattle skyline from his large office on the top floor of Stevenson Be Safe Development Corporation. The view had always been comforting during the most difficult business negotiations, but not today. He closed his eyes, the long nights since the reading of Walker Stevenson's will 3 days ago catching up with him. Maybe great-grandfather wanted control, yet to decide his future from beyond the grave was bullheaded even for him. The requirement to marry by his 27th birthday seemed too much to ask, even for Grand. Now, he had 30 days to find a wife. He had dated other women, he'd even been engaged. But ever since his heart had been shattered into tiny pieces, he wasn't about to risk another painful heartache again. In fact, he had made the decision not to marry. That is, until the reading of Walker Stevenson's will. Now, it looked like the joke was on him. Absently, he toyed with his watch, his movements erratic. He needed some coffee. That always helped to steady his nerves. He walked to the nearby kitchenette and poured a cup of coffee. Walking over to his office desk, he sat on his leather chair. Taking a sip of the hot brew, Adam pondered how he was going to solve this dilemma. He set his mug down and reached for his old Rubik's Cube. Mechanically, he started twisting the small colored squares. Solutions to problems seemed to come to him as he worked through difficult puzzles and patterns. As he slipped the last square into place, he felt more clear-headed than he had in days. He set the cube down on his desk and picked up the magazine his younger brother, Gabe, had handed him yesterday. On the cover was a picture of him taken by a reporter at a recent charity function focused on helping the city's homeless. The reporter had added his photo to the front cover of Seattle's business magazine. He quickly closed the magazine and threw it in his desk drawer. All the extra attention embarrassed him. Yes, it was true that in the last 7 years, Adam and his 4 brothers had created many security products and development services. Their business had just passed a net worth of $11 billion. In Adam's mind, he was still a normal guy. He was the same guy who was passionate to create software that helped keep people a little safer from the scammers out there. It was just his small part to play to make the world a better place. Adam sighed and looked out the window again, his thoughts busy trying to figure out his next step. Shifting his attention, he grabbed the yellow notepad on the edge of his desk and set it in front of him. He picked up his pen and twirled it back and forth, the pen dropping every few seconds. He needed to get his thoughts onto paper to get the clarity he lacked. Gripping the pen, his fingers shook as he scrawled in black ink the words, "What woman do I know and trust would agree to be my fake wife?" That was a question for which there was no immediate answer. "I can see the sweat on your forehead from here." Jack stepped quietly into the office. His brother closed the door and leaned back against it in his usual cavalier way. The single scar that ran down his cheek was a gift he had received from one of the leaders of a human trafficking operation after he rescued a girl from their clutches. Adam admired Jack for his daring rescue and for standing up for what he believed in. "Are you mulling over possible wives from memories of old girlfriends?" Adam shot a glance at his dark-haired brother and lifted an eyebrow. "I see you've managed to get inside my office without alerting Mrs. Appleton." He put the pen down, leaned back on his chair, and grabbed a tissue, wiping the sheen of perspiration from his forehead. He picked up his coffee cup and took another sip, sending his brother a calculated look. "What?" Jack walked over to the coffee pot and poured a mug of coffee. After tasting the hot brew, he went to sit on one of the comfy leather chairs across from Adam. He snatched the notepad and read the top line before handing it back. So I was right. You are brainstorming, just like you used to whenever you had to make a serious decision. This time, though, you're not pacing." Adam blew out his cheeks and stood up. He walked toward the window, hoping the incredible view would give him a better perspective on the big step he was about to take. "Looks like I spoke too soon." Adam turned to frown at his younger brother, who pointedly stared at his shuffling feet back and forth in front of the window. It's really annoying how well you know me. Adam rubbed the back of his neck, easing some of the tightness in his muscles. Okay, all teasing aside. I came early so I could help you. Jack grabbed the notepad and pen. How are you going to do that? Adam folded his arms across his chest and found himself worrying a little over the mischievous smile that formed around Jack's mouth. You're going to brainstorm out loud, and I'm going to write your ideas down. Remember how we helped each other study for those difficult tests during college? This is a little like that, except this time you're in need of a wife. Fast. Adam walked toward Jack, realizing that he needed help. It was true, Jack knew him the best out of anyone. They grew up learning each other's strengths as well as weaknesses and helping each other with both. He trusted Jack to help him sort through this new challenge. Adam sighed, pushing back the emotional emptiness that flooded him as he concentrated on qualities he wanted for his wife in name only. Sighing heavily, he said, "All right, let's do this thing." Adam looked over Jack's shoulder, staring at the notepad, and stopped pacing. His heart staggered somewhat under the sudden weight of what he was about to do. Writing your ideas down will help you figure this out. Jack rested the pen under his chin, watching him. I'm not sure about that. Adam paused, adjusting his collar before he went on. But I am willing to do whatever it takes. Okay then, let's get this over and done. Drinking more coffee, he swallowed and began. As I've been thinking this through, I realized it might be a good idea if I started writing down a list of past women friends and girlfriends. Maybe that will be a good jumping-off point. Let me have them. Adam continued. First off, let's cross Alicia Wentworth off the list. Since I found her cheating on me while we were engaged, she's not someone I can trust. Done. Jack wrote down her name and crossed it off. So tell me who you are considering. As I've been thinking about all the single women I know, I've come up with 3 possible names, Adam sighed. And they are my high school girlfriend, Betty Johnson. Then there were the 2 women I dated in college, Lucille Moore and Amelia Thompson. Adam ran a hand through his hair. Jack scribbled the names onto the paper. Okay, let's start with Betty. I'm afraid we'll need to scratch her name off the list. Mom said she got engaged a month ago. Adam sighed. Okay, that means I have 2 names left. Well, about that, I'm afraid you only have 1 name, Jack said. Why's that? Adam lifted one eyebrow, wondering how his list of names could have been shortened so quickly. Because when I ran into Lucille's good friend Mia at the coffee shop a few weeks ago, she told me Lucille had decided to become a nun. Jack glanced at him over the brim of his coffee mug. Adam closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. I can't believe it. Well, I guess I'll need to call Amelia and see if she'll agree to my plan. Go ahead. Jack walked to the coffee pot and poured himself more of the hot brew while Adam dialed Amelia's number. When he reached her, all he heard was Amelia's voice on a recorded message. You've reached Amelia. I have just left for a year-long sabbatical in Italy, so I won't be available. However, if this is urgent, you can call my parents, and they will know how to get in touch with me. Thanks. Amelia's happy voice ended the call. Adam sighed in frustration. He turned to his brother. I got Amelia's answering machine. Sounds like she's gone to Italy for a year-long sabbatical. Looks like all your old girlfriends are not available or out of the country. Jack grimaced. Yeah, that about sums it up. Adam rubbed the back of his neck. He wondered how he was going to solve this problem. It doesn't change the fact that I need to find a wife fast. Jack looked over at him and asked, Do you think you'll find a woman who will agree to marry you in less than 30 days? Yes, if she has the right incentive. The right incentive? Like what? Jack glanced up at him. Adam thought about it for a minute. Well, I would need for her to agree to a marriage in name only for 1 year. I want her to agree that there won't be any messy emotions involved. His brother wrote those ideas down. Those are unusual requests to ask of your wife. Fake wife, Adam reminded his brother. His brother shrugged. Also, I'm not sure how you'll be able to control how she feels about you, Jack said. Adam stopped pacing, turning to his brother in exasperation. All right, I'll stop. Jack raised both hands in mock surrender. Adam nodded and continued walking around the office deep in thought. He played with his wristwatch as Jack finished writing on the notepad, still finding it difficult to believe that he was actually doing this. So, I've got a question. Jack thumped the pen against the notepad. If you don't want this to be a long-term marriage, how are you going to get the woman to agree to be your wife and stay married to you for the required 1 year? I'm confident there is one woman out there who will be willing to agree to this marriage as a contract-only sort of arrangement. The $1 million she'll get at the end of the year should influence her decision. Adam didn't doubt that there would be at least one woman willing to marry him for that amount of money. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Likely you'll find a woman who is willing to commit if she's desperate for the money. Jack rubbed his chin and looked at Adam thoughtfully. Seems like there's not a lot of benefits to this relationship. It's almost like you're marrying a roommate. Good, because that's exactly how I want it to be. Adam mentally sorted through all the women he dated and decided that most were either not to be trusted or wanted more from him than he was prepared to give. I'm pretty sure Mom wouldn't approve of this plan, so that's another reason I need my fake wife to be willing to commit to marriage for 1 year. I need our mother to believe that this marriage is for real and based on true love. That's a good idea, especially with Mom longing to hold grandbabies on her lap soon. Jack winked at Adam. That's a role you can fulfill with your wife, not me. After all, it'll be your turn to marry in 1 year's time. Adam nearly laughed as he saw Jack's face turn a little pale at the reminder. I see you're starting to have a glimpse of what I'm going through right now. Yeah, maybe. But let's get back to finding your wife. Adam couldn't help but smile at how quickly Jack turned the conversation back around. He had such a short amount of time to find a wife. Would he be able to do it? It would be difficult to find a woman to agree to his terms, but he was determined to see this through. Adam raked a hand through his hair. He hoped the name of a woman who would be a possible wife candidate would suddenly spring to mind, but no name surfaced. Jack stood to his feet and walked over to the large picture window. Adam joined him. Turning to Jack, he saw a glint in his brother's eyes. I recognize that look. You've had an idea. Adam knew his brother well. Well, don't keep me in suspense. Let's have it. A small smile turned up the corners of Jack's mouth. I'm not sure you'll like the idea, but I'll tell you anyway. Adam nodded. Do you remember when you used to spend summers at Grand's ranch working with the horses? You mentioned you'd been getting to know the neighbor girl, Elle Jennings. Jack's dark eyes seemed to glue him to the floor. I do remember Elle. Off and on throughout the years, Adam remembered his childhood friend. There were many good memories, but the memory that haunted him was the day her father died in the accident. Well, I also remember when you said the two of you had become really good friends. In fact, I remember you telling me that together you had made a pact. Do you remember that? Jack grinned at the memory. Adam gave his brother a grudging nod. I do remember the pact I made with Elle, but she was only 9 years old at the time. What exactly was this pact? He eyed Jack and sighed. It was Elle's idea, but I went along with it. Adam smiled at the vivid memory of Elle's freckled face grinning up at him. She said, I really like you, Adam. You're a good friend. In fact, you're my best friend. I think we should make a pact. I asked her, what kind of pact? Elle told me, we should agree that if one of us doesn't marry by the time you are 27 years old, we should marry each other. Jack grinned. Since you're about to turn 27, you are close to the age you agreed on. I think you should talk to Elle. Maybe she would agree to marry you. You made a pact, after all. Adam shook his head, annoyed at his brother. We were children, Jack. That hardly counts. Well, I still think you should talk to Elle. You never know. She might agree to this crazy idea, and you're starting to run out of options. His brother's reminder of the deadline was sobering. I'll think about it, but that's all I'm promising. Adam sighed heavily. As his brother walked back to the sofa, Adam continued to stare out the window. His thoughts were on Elle. The last time he saw her, it was at her father's funeral. She had been angry and blamed him for her dad's death. The roads had been icy, and when the truck careened into the ditch, her dad died. Regret still haunted him over what happened. Maybe she was still angry with him. Would she be willing to talk to him? Exasperated, he got up and started throwing a soft rubber ball against the wall as he continued to think of a solution to his get-a-wife-in-30 days dilemma. Suddenly the sound of the office intercom buzzed, shaking him out of his deep thoughts. Yes? Your appointments have arrived, Mrs. Appleton's voice reflected that grandmotherly sweetness. After a quick knock on his door, his younger brothers sauntered in with Mrs. Appleton following behind. I'll just put the food tray on the side table, Mr. Stevenson. Thank you, Mrs. Appleton. Adam was grateful that the older lady had agreed to be his executive secretary. He made a mental note to raise her salary soon for all the details she took care of for him. His brothers all found comfortable spots on his large leather sofas. They were in his office today for their quarterly meeting to discuss their latest projects. For Adam, seeing his brothers all together in one room gave him an incredible feeling of love and loyalty. Each of them had gone through the same heartache with the death of their father after his business partner had stolen all the money he had. Their family was left drowning in debt. They did what was needed to support their mom financially and emotionally. The hardships had been tough to go through, but it also built a stronger bond between them as brothers. As he looked around the room at each of them, he thought about the differences in their personalities and how that had formed who they were today. Jack, why don't you start? Adam sat on the edge of one of the couches, happy to redirect his focus. Well, the in-home security division is going well. In the past year, what seems to be trending upwards is custom-built shelters. Jack rubbed a hand on his chin as he thought more about it. I'm working with our architectural team right now on some new design ideas that I'm confident will attract even more people who want that extra security for their homes. The sales numbers definitely look good, Jack. Luke's head was bent as usual, staring at his laptop computer, scrolling through the latest spreadsheet. Adam had always admired Luke's skills for accounting and investing. In fact, your numbers are close to mine with the launch of the new accounting software. Luke grinned triumphantly. It was a fact that the software Luke had created specifically to help people keep track of their personal money and business accounts had been such a success that Luke was now creating a kids' edition. So many parents and grandparents had asked Luke to create something for the younger generation. It was a full package that included tips on budgeting, saving, and creating wealth one step at a time. Yeah, well, don't let that go to your head, because there's sure to be a change coming in my favor next quarter. Jack grinned as he looked around the room at his brothers, then pointedly at Luke, rubbing his hands together. And I can't wait. Don't count the rest of us out yet, Jack. Zach, the youngest, spoke up. I might be the youngest, but in the past year, folks about town and along the west coast have started to notice the boats I've designed and have come to appreciate the high-tech security in them. Motorboats, sailboats, as well as yachts. We've had to double our production, and I predict we'll double again this next year. I have no doubt you will, Zach. I'm amazed at what you've already accomplished in a few short years. Adam reached over and fist-bumped his youngest brother. I have a feeling Dad would have been proud of you all. Zach gave a sideways smile. His cheeks turned red enough to match his auburn-colored hair at Adam's words. There was a subdued hush in the room for a minute, as all 5 brothers remembered their dad, who had died when they were in their early teen years. The doctor had said stress was a major cause of the heart attack, as Daniel Stevenson's business partner, Simon Black, had cleaned out all the bank accounts and created more debt before he disappeared. The police caught Simon and sent him to jail, but it was an extremely difficult time for their mom and all 5 sons. Only a few years later, the brothers had formed Be Safe Development Corporation to build security software and systems, to help others learn how to be proactive to keep themselves and their businesses safe. Gabe, how's it been going with all your personal development projects and speaking events? Adam turned to look at his blonde-haired brother, whose bright blue eyes and pearly white smile gave him the angelic appearance to match his given name, Gabriel. There have been many more requests from people who want to bring their personal development to the next level to help them live a better life. The speeches and different events seem to be well received. For the next few months, my focus will be on creating more online products and services for easier access. Gabe leaned his elbows on his knees as he looked around the room. From what I hear from friends and business connections, they want more of what you're giving them, so that sounds like a solid plan. Adam nodded and looked at the itemized list on his smartphone. Looks like I'm next. So far, the business side of things is going well. The release of my newest software will be ready to go next month. I'm hopeful that this one will do as well or better than the first. If it's better than the last one, you've got a winner. Thanks, Gabe. Adam stood up and walked over to put his now empty water bottle in the recycle bin. I guess that's it. Thanks, guys. Adam looked down at his smartphone. Looks like we've covered plans for next quarter, so I think we're good. Sorry to cut this meeting short, but I need to get going. I want to get to great-grandfather's ranch before the sun goes down. So you're going to accept Gran's terms so you can inherit that old homestead? Zach lifted one eyebrow as he waited. I am. Adam tucked his laptop into its carrying case. I'm not happy about it, but I want Gran's old homestead too much to miss out on making it mine, and I've decided it'll take too much time to fight the will in court. So I will take the weekend, or maybe a little longer, for some thinking time. You are braver than I am, but I have a little more time before it'll be my turn. Zach's loud sigh of relief seemed to echo off the office walls. It'll be your turn before you know it, little brother. Adam clapped each of his brothers on the back, grabbed his jacket from the back of the office chair, and walked out of the office. He hurried to where his truck was parked and set out to get through Seattle's busy highways. He was relieved when he finally saw the sign for the small town of Paradise Lake. Adam had spent many summers here growing up and had always appreciated the peaceful, idyllic setting. Adam turned down the long gravel road that led to Gran's ranch. Living on this ranch had always been a dream of his since he was a small boy. 1,000 acres sat right next to gentle sloping mountains, connecting to a half-mile stretch of lake. It was the picturesque, perfect life he'd always dreamed of living. Even though he had money to buy any land he wanted, it was this ranch that held his fondest childhood memories. He belonged here. Adam parked his truck in front of the sprawling cedar-trimmed ranch house and decided to take a walk along the beach before he did anything else. Hurrying down the gentle slope that led to the sandy beach and glistening lake water, he heard the loud bark of a dog and the whinny of a horse in the distance. Finally, he reached the end of the path through the trees and stood on the quiet beach. Only he wasn't alone. A large quarter horse stood by the water with a red-haired golden retriever running and barking as it skipped through the water. Quiet, Ginger. Adam looked up quickly at the sound of the soft, lilting voice. His mouth curved into a smile at the beauty that stood beside the horse. He walked a little closer, and his heartbeat quickened as his gaze swept over her. The woman's strawberry blonde hair was weaved into a thick braid that hung gracefully over her left shoulder, curling over appealing curves and dipping to her waist, where it swayed with every movement. Long, slender legs filled out her faded jeans that were tucked into cowboy boots. He looked back up to large green eyes that were dusted with dark brown lashes, and an oval face with freckles sprinkled across her nose and cheeks. This woman had that girl-next-door look Adam found so appealing. She was a vision. Beside her, a red-haired golden retriever's loud bark again broke the silence. Hush, Ginger. She turned and leaned over to pat her dog's head. Her lilting voice jolted Adam out of a trance. She turned to look at him, and suddenly recognition dawned on him. For a moment he was tongue-tied. Elle Jennings. He breathed out her name like a prayer. His blue eyes searched hers. Adam's breath stilled in his chest, his lungs ceased, suddenly paralyzed, as memories washed over him. He had just been thinking about Al. Now here she was. Once again, he was face to face with the daughter of the man whose life he had failed to save.